Hi, I'm Todd Jones, host of the podcast Pressbox Access. Here's a clip from my conversation with Tom Archdeacon. Arch tells us about the surprising outcome to the time when Muhammad Ali took him along to the circus. Ali, there's no greater athlete in our lifetime. And you know Ali. You knew him as a person. You knew him as a boxer. Let's start with Ali. Tell me about Muhammad.
Well, he's probably, of all the athletes I have dealt with, he's one of my favorite, if not the favorite guy, just because of the way he treated, I don't care if it was royalty or the guy sweeping the floor at the Fifth Street Gym, he treated him the same. And he just took you on some real adventures, and I had a few with him, and I just love the guy. I love his courage, too.
Yeah, very much so, right? I mean, he stood up for what he believed in.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have written a lot of words about Ali over the years. I don't know anybody who has actually gone to the circus with Ali.
Yeah, I used to. So I worked in Miami, Florida for a long time. I was a columnist down there, and I'd go over at lunchtime, and I'd go to the Fifth Street Gym almost every day, and I'd see the old timers in there, and Ali trained in there. And part of the time, and I would see him and talk to him. And so one day I'd been in there for about a week, and we were talking, and the Ringling Brothers Circus always opens in Miami Beach. They bring elephants across the causeway, and they open. So he asked me if I wanted to go to the circus with him. I went, yeah, that'd be all right. So he comes by, they send a car by the gym. I came to the gym, picked me up at the gym, and in there's his two little daughters. I think Layla, he's got a bunch of kids, but Layla must have been, 2-3 years old, and she had another sister, Hannah, that was maybe a year older or so. And so the four of us go to the circus, and we're sitting down kind of, it's indoors at the convention center in Miami Beach. We're sitting down in kind of the front row, and I go out and get us some popcorn. We're sitting there, and Ali, all of a sudden, while I was getting popcorn, didn't know what happened. I come back, and Ali tells me, he says, "I'll be right back." And I go, "Oh, okay." So now I'm there with his two little girls, and 5 minutes turns into 10 minutes, and I'm starting to panic, and they're starting to answer on. I'm going, what the hell's going on here? And all of a sudden, the curtains at the far end part, and there comes an elephant in, and there's who's on the back of the elephant but Ali. And the place goes nuts. And they come over, and the little girls are squealing on, and they got a handler in front. And they come over to where we're sitting in the front box, and the guy has me hand one of the little girls over, and he puts her down on the ground. The elephant puts his trunk around her and lifts her up and brings her up to Ali. They set the next one up with Ali, and Ali, the little girls are waving goodbye to me, and Ali takes off with this. I never saw him again the rest of the night. That was going to the circus with Ali. You never know what's going to happen with him.
Why didn't you get on the elephant, Tom? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't think that trunk could have picked up, man.
Did he ever pay you for babysitting?
Yeah, no. He just. But it was, years later. I covered some Ali fights along the way. A couple, not a lot, but I covered some, especially his last losses, but. Years later, I see Ali at a function at a junior college, and he's there, and he's walking kind of wobbly and things like this, and he sees me, and he motions over, and his voice was kind of a whisper and all, and he motions me to come over, and he goes, "You got old," and I go, "Well, you're pretty old. You look pretty old yourself," and he goes, "Yeah, but I'm still pretty." And then he still had that little sparkle in his eye, and I liked, the way he treated everybody, but the way he stood up. We got some athletes now we're seeing it again. Some athletes that are really standing for something and will speak out on matters of social justice and things like that. But that's what I admired most of him.
What about as a boxer? You saw him at the tail end of his career, right, in the late 70s. Tell me about the fight, a couple of the fights. You cover, 4 fights, Ali fought in?
Three fights. When he beat Spinks for the title in New Orleans, and which was a grand night. I mean, it was in the Superdome, and there was over 60,000 people or something, and it's just Joe Frazier sang the national anthem, and there, ringside there's Sylvester Stallone and John Travolta and Liza Minnelli, all these people, and Ali comes in, and Ali had been beaten by Spinks 7-8 months before that on a split decision. So he got in there, and he had trained pretty hard for this, and he got in, and he was just kind of like the Ali of old a little bit. He kind of controlled this young kid, and even there was times I can remember where he broke into the Ali shuffle, and this was, he was in, he must have been 35, 36 years old then. Spinks was a lot younger, 11, 12 years younger, and he won a unanimous decision that night, and it was like the whole crowd, it was almost like they just converged on him as he went out of the arena. Just everyone followed him, and it was, I can remember through the fight, Angelo Dundee, who was my friend from Miami,
and he was Ali's trainer, right?
Ali's trainer, and he started kind of taunting Spinks during the fight, going, he would yell across the ring, going, goodbye, Leon, and it was just, and that's what it turned out to be. And
so where were you sitting during the fight that you could hear that? You had to be close, right?
I was close. I was probably in the second row of the sportswriters, So I was up real tight, But I mean, I also talked to Dundee about it afterwards. But then I had I covered him two fights he never should have had. The Holmes fight in Vegas, and then the last fight when he fought Trevor Berbick in Nassau, Bahamas, and that was just a terrible travesty,
What was it like? Tell me about that night.
Oh, it was so sad. He was just a ghost of himself when he came out. The whole production was screwed up from start to finish. I mean, it was like an amateur hour, and they forgot to open the gates. The crowd was outside, and they couldn't break the gates were locked, and they couldn't get the crowd in. And then finally, people started crawling over the walls, and finally he comes in. There were several other pretty good fights on there. Ernie Shavers fought, a bunch of different guys fought on the card. But then when he came out, he didn't even look himself, and he's fighting Trevor Berbick, a young guy, kind of unknown then, and Berbick. This was his hero. Berbick didn't even want to hit him at the end, and it was just and it was hot that night, and it was outdoors. It's like when you see these guys that it's like ending at some circus in some dusty town or something like that. I remember after the fight, he's sitting. I always remember this scene. I got in the dressing room right afterwards, and John Travolta is there kneeling at Ali's. It was a surreal scene. Travolta's kneeling in front of Ali, holding his hands, weeping. And Ali's consoling him. So it was just John
Travolta was crying.
Yeah, he was crying. He was on his knees in front of Ali, holding his hand, and it was just a sad scene And then finally, Ali retired after that. But and then I'd see him around. He didn't come around Miami much after that, But those were the two, and the Holmes fight was just
another sad one.
Shell, yeah. No, he had done something to lose a lot of weight, and it just he had no sweat that night, and he just wasn't himself.